So, you ask an AI a question and boom, in seconds you get this perfectly written, super confident answer. But is it actually any good? Is it right? Is it even helpful? And how on earth are you supposed to know for sure? Well, that's the big question everyone's trying to figure out right now.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to start with the core problem, the evaluation challenge. Then we'll look at the most obvious solution, what I call the human vibe check. After that, we'll dive into standardized tests, and then the really wild stuff, when AIs judge AIs. We'll wrap up by looking at the big trade-offs and how it all comes together.
So, here's the central issue. The more creative and powerful these models get, the harder it is to tell if what they're saying is useful, accurate, or even safe. We're way past just checking if 2 + 2 = 4.
Right, so this is the question on everyone's mind. And when you boil it all down, the industry has really come up with 3 main ways of trying to answer it. Let's dig into the first and oldest one.
Okay, first up, the human vibe check. It's exactly what it sounds like. You show an AI's answer to a person and just ask, "Hey, what do you think of this?" You can think of it like a professor reading an essay. It's personal, it's nuanced, and for a very long time, people thought it was the absolute best way.
And this wasn't just a casual thought. The idea of human evaluation being the gold standard has been a core belief in this field for years. And it makes sense, doesn't it? If the AI is supposed to help people, then people should be the final judge.
But that gold standard starts to look a little tarnished up close. For one, it's incredibly slow and expensive to get enough people to rate this stuff. But more importantly, we humans are surprisingly easy to fool. Research shows we tend to think that more confident-sounding AI answers are more accurate, even when they're completely made up. So we end up training these AIs to be really good bluffers, because we reward them for it.
So, to get around all the problems with humans, the industry created benchmarks. You can think of these as standardized multiple-choice tests, but for AIs. It's a way to grade them quickly, objectively, and at a massive, massive scale.
And this really gets to the heart of the trade-off. With benchmarks, you get this amazing scale and objectivity. You can compare thousands of models on a leaderboard. But what you give up is all that real-world nuance that the human vibe check is so good at capturing.
Yeah, but just like any standardized test, benchmarks have their own problems. Models can train to the test. Basically, they memorize the answers without actually learning anything. That's called overfitting. And even worse is something called data leakage. That's when the test questions were actually secretly part of the AI's training data. It's like a student who stole the exam answers ahead of time.
And believe me, this overfitting problem is very, very real. One study took a popular coding benchmark and just made some tiny tweaks to the questions. And get this, AI performance just plummeted by an average of almost 40%. That tells you the models weren't learning to code, they were learning to pass that one specific test.
Okay, so if humans are flawed and tests can be gamed, what's left? Well, this is where things get really futuristic and kind of weird. What if we use one really powerful AI, like a GPT-4, to grade the answers from another AI? They call this the model-as-evaluator approach. It's basically like asking the smartest kid in the class to grade everybody's homework.
Now, on paper, this sounds amazing, right? You get the lightning speed of a benchmark, but with the sophisticated judgment of something that's almost human. But this is where we discover that AIs have their own set of really bizarre biases.
First off, you have nepotism bias. And yeah, it is exactly what it sounds like. It turns out that AI judges give higher scores to answers that were written by themselves, or by models from their own family. Seriously, they play favorites.
Then you've got verbosity bias. AI judges just seem to be really impressed by long, wordy answers, even if half of it is just filler. They confuse the quantity of words with the quality of the idea, kind of like some people I know.
And finally, there's sycophancy bias. The AI judge can be a total people pleaser. It has a tendency to just agree with the answer it's grading to be agreeable, even if the answer is flat out wrong.
So, let's just recap for a second. Humans are slow, expensive, and we get fooled by confidence. Benchmarks are fast, but they can be gamed, and AI judges are fast, but they're biased weirdos who play favorites and love long-winded answers. It feels like an impossible problem. So is there a perfect judge? This is the big aha moment.
This chart from a study on AI in healthcare just makes the whole problem so clear. There is no single best way to do this. It is all about trade-offs. Let's look at the chart on the left. It's comparing how scalable a method is versus its real-world relevance. You see benchmarking is way up there on scalability, but human evaluation is way over to the right on relevance. You get one, but you sacrifice the other.
Now, check out the chart on the right. Here, the trade-off is between the risk of bias and the risk of that data leakage we talked about. And again, they're opposites. Human evaluation has a super high risk of bias, benchmarking has a super high risk of leakage. And you see the AI judge, the model as evaluator, kind of floating in the middle of both charts? It's a compromise, for sure. But it is not a perfect solution.
So if none of these methods work perfectly on their own, what's the answer? Well, the solution that smart teams, like the ones over at LinkedIn, are landing on is this. You don't pick one. You combine them all into a smart strategic pipeline.
And this is what that actually looks like. It's a multi-step process where you use each tool for what it's good at. First, you use benchmarks for a quick daily check-in. Then, you use AI judges to check thousands of answers at scale for things like coherence and style. And then at the very end, you bring in a small group of human experts for that final high-stakes verification to spot the subtle stuff that only a person can.
So here's the real takeaway. That single score you see on an AI leaderboard, it almost never tells the whole story. Real-world quality isn't just one number. It's this complex, messy thing that you can only really measure with a complex, multi-layered approach. And this leaves us with a final, really important question. The way we decide to measure these tools, the tests we make, the feedback we give, those aren't just measurements. They are instructions. By deciding how we grade an AI, we are telling it what we value. So we have to ask, what qualities, accuracy, creativity, safety, empathy, are we telling these AIs to learn? Because ultimately, what we choose to measure is what they will become.